Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. So in the offering of prayers, um, this is called Samprarthanatmika, very feelingly offering prayers. So offering prayers obviously means with feeling. Yuvatinam yatha yuni yunam cha yuvato yatha manobhiramate tadvan mano me ramatam tvayi. Just as the minds of young ladies take pleasure in thinking of young men, and the minds of young men take pleasure in thinking of young women, kindly let my mind take pleasure in you, Krishna, alone. This is a verse in the Padma Puran that's quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So this is an example of a prayer to the Lord. Prayer, because in the Christian connotation, it's generally attached to asking for something, um, you could say more practical, or not practical, something more immediate. We tend to associate with prayer like praying to God for something. But prayer can also be just praying to the Lord for devotional service, for here in this prayer, they're praying for attraction. That, oh my Lord, I'm praying to you. Please help me pray to you more. Please help me become more attracted to you and spontaneously attracted to you, just like young women are attracted to young men and young men attracted to young women. So this is a prayer for Raganuga Bhakti. This is the sadhaka praying to the Lord, please allow me to be naturally, spontaneously attracted to you so I can serve you and love you in spontaneous love. So one can also pray to advance in the stages of bhakti, praying to move from sadhana to raganuga. Krishna Deve Bhavatam Vande Manmanasakam Madhurakam Arpaya Nijapade Pankaja Makarande. Krishna Deva, I offer this prayer. May my mind, like a bee, become offered at your feet, which are lotuses of nectar. Krishna Deva, I offer this prayer. May my mind, like a bee, become offered at your feet, which are lotuses of nectar. Prasida Bhagavan. O Lord, please be merciful to me. So this is a very short prayer from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Please be merciful unto me. So these were examples of this first type of prayer, which is samprarthanatmika, very feelingly offering prayers. So prayers with deep feeling. Another type of prayer is dainya bodhika, which is humbly submitting oneself to Krishna. In these prayers, these are prayers of submission. Matsamo nasti papatma na paradhi chakashana parihare pilajjame kim bhuve purushottama. O Purushottama, Supreme Person, there is no one as sinful and offensive as I am. How can I describe myself? I even feel ashamed to give up my sins. So this is the devotee humbly submitting himself that there's no one as sinful and offensive as I am. How can I describe myself? I mean, this is the complete opposite of the consciousness of the material world. When we're thinking of ourselves in the material consciousness, we think, who could be better than me? I mean, why doesn't the world just see what a sincere and great soul I am? And the spiritual consciousness is, I'm the most offensive, most sinful person. I should just be, you know, uh, I should just be neglected. I should just be tucked in a corner. How can I'm spiritually speaking. Of course, materially, we should not be self denigrating. It's not going to help us. But spiritually, we are, feeling very, very unqualified. Even to give up my sins, I'm ashamed. Why? Because if I give up my sins, people will see the great mountain of sins that I've committed. So this is the feeling of of humbly submitting oneself, praying in humble submission. Even though I'm a cheater, the Lord's mercy can drive away my inherent wicked nature. Give me the glowing nectar of divine love and inspire my heart with the process and inspire my heart with the process to worship Sri Gandharvika. Therefore, O mind, with pleasing words, with pleading words, you should worship Sri Giridhari here in Vrindavan. So this is from the Manashiksha of Raghunath Das Goswami, where Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the greatest devotees of the Lord and most intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya, he was feeling like this. And he was telling his mind that please, with pleading words, worship the feet of Sri Giridhari and allow me to drive away my wicked nature. O my Lord, please protect me, who am surrendered unto you. I am most fearful of this ocean of material existence, standing as I am in the mouth of death. O my Lord, please protect me, who am surrendered unto you. I am most fearful of this ocean of material existence, standing as I am in the mouth of death. Myself and whatever little I possess in this world and in the next, all this I now offer unto your lotus feet. So, this is called samarpitam, full surrender, offering everything to the Lord, and recognizing also our very very difficult situation where we recognizing the precariousness of our situation, that we are standing in the mouth of death. So we are actually worthy of feeling ourselves pitiable, and it's not just hyperbole. It is actually the truth. And then the final one is lalasa mai, desiring some perfectional stage. So praying to the Lord for desiring some perfectional stage. And this is the third type of prayer. When one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in that position, either as a friend, servant, parent, or conjugal lover of Krishna. That is called lalasa mai, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. So, devotees have told me that some devotees in our movement have had glimpses of their eternal relationship with Krishna. They've realized it. They know it, but they have not actually realized it. So they know that this is their eternal position because it was revealed to them by Srila Prabhupada, or in some very bona fide way, they know that this is what their eternal position is in the spiritual world. But they're not reinstated. They're not serving Krishna in that original position. They're not actually there. They're not actually feeling those emotions right now. They're not actually serving Krishna in that way. So in this stage, this is the third level, a very high level of prayer. One is praying to the Lord to allow Krishna, praying to the Lord for permission to serve Krishna in that way and to allow them to serve Krishna once again in that position. So they're very eagerly praying to the Lord for this service, because this is their natural position. This is their service to Krishna. This is the way they're supposed to serve Krishna. So they're asking the Lord that you kindly bless us so that we can serve Krishna in that way. The Lalasa Mai stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Sarupa Siddhi, when the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord. So, Sarupa Siddhi, Rupa means form, Svarupa means one's own form. Swarupa Siddhi is when one recognizes or realizes one's own form. And what's very interesting is that sometimes even devotees who are not very advanced, but who get a very big load of causeless mercy, even such devotees are able to recognize or realize, due to causeless mercy, are able to recognize their eternal relationship with Krishna. But they have that Sarupa Siddhi. But even after realizing that, um, uh, one devotee told me, they sometimes fall from the spiritual path. And a good example of this is Bharat Maharaj, where Bharat Maharaj was on the stage of Bhava. And by that stage, surely they know their eternal relationship with Krishna. But still, due to the attachment with the deer, he fell for some time from the spiritual path. But then, after realizing his mistake, he came back on the right path and then further made spiritual advancement, ultimately to the stage of perfection. So, one can become liberated and realize one's eternal spiritual form, but still be on the path of spiritual life. And so that is the Lala Samai stage of submission and prayer, where a devotee has understood but not fully reached that highest stage. And so the devotee is praying fervently to come to that stage. And see, all of us actually chant a Lalasa Mai stage prayer every single day. If we're doing the Mangalarti, the morning program, we're actually all chanting a prayer just like this, even though we have obviously not recognized our eternal relationship with Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada actually warns us that we should not prematurely try to understand it. We should not prematurely claim to know it. Like, this is something very, very serious. It's very genuine, and it's very tangible when it is revealed. It's not like, oh, I had a dream and Krishna showed me my eternal form, or I'm like now some sort of special devotee because I understood my form. It doesn't work like that. It's the one of the first signs of reaching that stage is complete detachment from the material world. So if we have any attachment to the material world, we obviously have not realized our spiritual position. Because if we actually realize our spiritual position, how could we have any interest in the material world? Like, if you once you realize that, let's say you're the prince of I don't know, of of Wonderland or something, and you have unlimited palaces and the greatest, most highest pleasure there. How will you take interest in your day-to-day life here, especially if you know you're going to go there in a few days? In the same way, once a person really realizes one's eternal position in the spiritual world with Krishna, which is the most wonderful, a million times greater than the greatest material happiness in this world, as we have discussed, then that person loses all material attraction to this material world. So one really cannot claim that they know their eternal spiritual nature when they're actually after some recognition and honor and pride. That is, if they actually have realized it, why would they go around telling other people? Because the very desire for some sort of recognition is a material desire. The desire to be famous as a great devotee of the Lord, or this or that, those are material desires. So most of the devotees who actually have realized their spiritual nature, we will never know that they have, because those are the devotees who will never tell us. They'll never tell us that they have realized it, because they don't want the attention, the recognition, and the praise. And the people who tell us, they may do out of compassion to encourage us, but if they're doing it and they're obviously attached to material life and they're very openly saying it, then we can be doubtful, because then why would they tell us? In fact, in one place, Srila Prabhupada actually says that the devotee never reveals their eternal relationship with Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada himself never revealed it. For the Goswamis, we know it because the other acharyas revealed it. They had the vision and they revealed it. um, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But for most devotees, it's never revealed because they don't desire to reveal it. It lessens the value of it. It cheapifies that. So um, so having said that this is not an ordinary stage. This is not a stage that should be imitated. Every single morning, we are praying to reach that stage. And what is the prayer? Who can say that we chant every single morning?
Tulsi
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Tulsi Maharani prayer.
Yes, the Tulsi Marani prayer. There's one specific line there. Do you know that which is part of the song?
मोरे यही अभिलाष है, विलास कुंज दियो.
Yes. Morai abhilash, vilas kunj diyo vas, nayane ribo sada, yugala ruparasi. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is singing that my desire is Morai Abhilash Vilas Kunja Diovas. Please allow me to serve you and Srimati Radharani in the kunjas of Vrindavan. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj made a very amazing point. He said that Srila Prabhupada gave us the process of sadhana, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, but he gave us a process of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti that was aimed toward Raganuga. And in fact, it's a Vaidhi sadhana bhakti that is also mixed with Raganuga bhakti. So many people, they criticize ISKCON and Prabhupada that, it's not a raga mark. It's not, the real juicy stuff. It's not the real thing. But that's just not true. What Prabhupada gave us is not sahaja. It is not cheap. But at the same time, he gave us very strict rules and regulations, but he put very, very advanced prayers in there. So we have no right to ask Krishna this. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is asking this. And following in his footsteps, we are asking for it. In other words, we are repeating the prayer that he is asking for. And in that way, we are asking, but through him. And this also shows that Srila Prabhupada was encouraging us to serve Krishna in the highest rasa of Madhurya Ras. Because Bilas Kunja Diyavas, in the Kunjas of Vrindavan, that is Madhurya Ras. So Srila Prabhupada was also not giving a process that was simply on, Sakhya Ras or, because that's another criticism that has been leveled against Prabhupada, that, he was giving Krishna Bhakti, but in the form of Sakhya Ras, in friendship, not in Madhurya Ras. But if that was the case, why did he give us these prayers to chant every morning? We're chanting these every single morning because that is the highest destination. We recognize that, we're aspiring for it. Now, whether we reach it or not, that's another thing. That's between us, Krishna, and the spiritual world. But Prabhupada is giving us something that has the process capability of taking us to that destination. So this is actually this Tulsi Maharani prayer that we say every single morning. That is a Lalasa Mai prayer. O lotus-eyed Lord, when will I dance on the bank of the Yamuna with tears in my eyes while singing your names? O Master of the universe, when will you, accompanied by Lakshmi, say with a deep voice to me, eager to serve you with Jamara, please come here. Narottam Das Thakur, Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. By the power of those lotus feet, my activities will become favorable to devotion. I will achieve spiritual perfection. And with these two eyes, I shall be able to actually see. Both day and night, the flood of exquisite beauty of Sri Rupa Manjari's divine lotus feet will shine like the brilliant full moon upon the lotus of my heart, soothing my afflicted soul. Narottam Das Thakur in his song Radha Krishna Pranamor. So in all these songs, these are all the songs that we sing in ISKCON. Every single, this is Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. This was one of Srila Prabhupada's most famous bhajans, most favorite bhajans also. it's being said that the power of Rupa Goswami's feet will make me favorable to devotion. They'll give me Sri Rupa Manjari's divine lotus feet will shine in my heart and will give me that spiritual perfection by which I can see this spiritual world. So wonderful. And then Narottam Das Thakur, Radha Krishna Pranamor, very, very common song that we sing. In a forest of small kadamba trees on the bank of the Yamuna, I will seat the divine couple on a throne made of brilliant jewels. I will anoint their dark and fair forms with sandalwood paste scented with chuya, and I will fan them with a chamra whisk. Oh, when will I behold their moon-like faces? After stringing together garlands of malati flowers, I will place them around their necks, and I will offer tambula scented with camphor to their lotus mouths. So this is Narottam Das Thakur envisioning how he's going to serve the Lord. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. Now we are not doing this, so then why are we singing these songs? We're singing these songs because we are praying to do these things. By the mercy of Narottam Das Thakur, by the mercy of the Acharyas, that one day, as Rupa Goswami says, one of the stages, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one of the stages of bhakti is hope against hope. Although there's no qualification, although there's no reason for us to even hope for that stage, the devotee hopes against hope. So this is hope against hope, that one day in the forest with small kadamba trees on the bank of the Yamuna, I will seat the divine couple on a brilliant throne. I will fan them, I'll anoint their forms with sandalwood paste and fan them with a chamara whisk. I will string garlands of malati flowers for them. We will behold their moon-like faces. So all of this, what is this? This is all prayers. This is aspiration. Oh my Lord, please let me one day reach that stage. In other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. This is in the chapter. Prabhupada says, one should learn this small technique, and he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in some particular type of service. This is called lolyam, and such tears are the price for the highest perfection. So now, then, after reading all this, we may, I was also, we feel a great greed that, oh my gosh, how can I reach this stage? This is what we all want, right? The spiritual world, Krishna, serving Krishna. Wow. I mean, it's so, all of our millions of lives problem will be solved. So Prabhupada's actually telling us here that we should cry for the Lord. We should actually cry out for him. Because only when we cry for Krishna will we actually get this stage. So we should be eager for this. We should eagerly cry to Krishna for some type of service which we have not realized. And that is the eligibility. That is in fact, the means of realizing or recognizing the Lord. That is called lolyam. And such tears are the price for the highest perfection. Lolyam means intense greed. The devotee has intense greed. And that greed is what gives the devotee that highest perfection. So this stage of recognizing one's swarupa, it does not come automatically. It's not just that we keep serving and it's just appears. Yes, it's true that we just keep serving and then the spiritual master becomes happy and they may reveal it to us. But at the same time, it comes when we have an intense eagerness to reach that stage, which means that we cry out to the Lord and we're very eager and we beg the Lord to reveal our service to him. If one develops this lolyam or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there's no material calculation for the value of the ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of God. The only price for such entrance is this lolyam lalasa mai, or desire and great eagerness. The only price for such entrance is this lolyam lalasa mai, or desire and great eagerness. Okay, very nice. Just 1 second, please hold. Okay, wonderful. Um, do you, my daughter was making some noise, my daughter and son. So I put a little fan in the background. Is that causing any disturbance, or can you hear me clearly?
Prabhu, we can hear you clear.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so this is, as you can see, all very interesting material that all of us should be very much aware of, because this is, as devotees, what we are always aspiring for. And here Rupa Goswami is discussing that. Then after describing these prayers, which have 3 stages, so we discussed these, and Rupa Goswami's instruction that we should offer prayers, then a separate one is one must recite notable prayers. So as I mentioned to you, how there's so many prayers that we are praying, but these are prayers of the acharyas, because we are not qualified to make our own prayers. In the same way, as a practice, we should recite the prayers of the Vaishnavas, of the great devotees of the Lord that are already written in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So for example, Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna, or Queen Kunti's prayers to Lord Krishna. In the Skanda Puran, the glories of these prayers are stated as follows. Devotees whose tongues are decorated always with prayers to Lord Krishna are always given respect, even by the great saintly persons and sages, and such devotees are actually worshipable by the demigods. Devotees whose tongues are decorated always with prayers to Lord Krishna are always given respect, even by the great saintly persons and sages, and such devotees are actually worshipable by the demigods. So simply by offering prayers, one can become a great, great devotee. In Nrsimha Puran, it is stated, any person who comes before the deity of the Lord and begins to chant different prayers is immediately relieved from all the reactions of sinful activities and becomes eligible without any doubt to enter into the Vaikuntha Loka. So
Hare
anyone who
Krishna,
comes,
Prabhu.
yes.
Can I interrupt 1 minute? Can I ask quickly question?
I'm almost done with this, Mataji, and then we'll do the questions. Yeah, this
Sure.
is the last few slides. Then we'll cover this, and then we'll do questions. We see in the Bhagavad Gita, which we've covered, Arjuna is offering prayers to Lord Krishna. You are without origin, middle, or end. Your glory is unlimited. You have numberless arms, and the sun and moon are your eyes. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, burning this entire universe by your own radiance. Then Shiva's prayers to Lord Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord's abdomen is beautiful due to three ripples in the flesh. Being so round, his abdomen resembles the leaf of a banyan tree. And when he exhales and inhales, the movements of the ripples appear very, very beautiful. The coils within the navel of the Lord are so deep that it appears that the entire universe sprouted out of it, and yet again wishes to go back. So these are prayers to Lord Vishnu, and he's just praying, he's just appreciating the Lord's navel and his stomach. Imagine. This is the nature of prayers. This is how wonderful the Lord is. The devotee can just become so energized simply by one small aspect of the Lord. My Lord, you are the observer of all the objectives of the senses. Without your mercy, there's no possibility of solving the problem of doubts. The material world is just like a shadow resembling you. Indeed, one accepts this material world as real because it gives a glimpse of your existence. O Lord of Madhu, this is Queen Kunti's prayers. As the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So this is Gange Vogham Mudanvati. Let my attraction forever flow to you like the Ganges flows to the sea without being attracted to anyone else. So this is the not just um, submission to the Lord, but what's the word I'm looking for? It's exclusive devotion to the Lord, exclusive submission to the Lord. This is why we don't worship other demigods. People say, well, why not Ganesh? I mean, it's written in the Nectar devotion. One can, pray to the Lord Ganesh to remove obstacles. Why not even other forms of the Lord? Because we want exclusive devotion to Lord Krishna. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant Narad Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? So here we are seeing how the great devotee of the Lord prays to the spiritual master even before the Lord himself. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you, this was Prahlad Maharaj, by the way, Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. So these are the final few verses of the Ishopanishad, where in the Upanishads they're praying that please um, uh, uh, help me remember all that I've done, and you know everything, and lead me on the right path. Kinkula Shekhar also prays in a very similar way that, oh my Lord, please remember all that I've done. Why? Not because of pride, the devotee doesn't feel they've done anything, but as a way of trying to evoke the mercy of the Lord. That please remember any service that I've done to you, and please, before I lose my consciousness and before I lose my remembrance of you, please bring me back to your own abode. So this is a quote from Srila Prabhupada. You have asked about singing the prayers of Narottam Das Thakur. And yes, they are very much approved in any language. And yes, they are very much approved in any language. So in any language is very key. We can even translate. We can even sing the translation. Make the English translation into poetry and sing that. In any language Prabhupada is saying, we can sing the prayers of Narottam Das Thakur. Okay, so there's many more here, and I'm going to stop here. So this is the end of chapter 9, which is actually the end of what we were supposed to cover last time. And so now I'll open it up for questions. I know there's a few people who have raised their hand for questions. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanvat Pranam. All good, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a wonderful class. I have a question, Prabhu. When we talk about prayers, like there are so many prayers in Bhagavatam, right? Like one of the prayers, my favorite is Vritasura prayers. But when I speak about Vritasura prayers, like are we talking about prayers glorifying the Lord, or are we talking about prayers like Vritasuras where we have a desire to go to Goloka and also we want to serve Krishna, and how he says that nanaka prashtham na chaparamishtham. So whole thing. So I always get confused. Is like when I read Brahma's prayers in Bhagavatam, Brahma is more focused on glorifying the Lord.
That's a
So
good
what
question.
should be our mood when we go in front of deities in the temple? Like what kind of prayers we should say?
Yes. So actually, so there's prayers of the Lord to the Lord, and there's also instructions. So in the Bhagavatam, there's also, Vritasura's instructions to Indra Dev, which are also very, very amazing. And I fully agree with you. That's actually one of my favorite sections also in the Bhagavatam. Vritasura's section is very, very touching, very instructive. So there's the instructions. We can memorize those verses as well. And there's also the prayers of the Lord, like Vritasura when he's giving up his body, when he prays to the Lord. So here they're speaking particularly about this 36th one. It's particularly speaking about reciting notable prayers. So any set of verses in which the devotee is praying to the Lord or the Lord's devotees. So it's not exactly talking about instructions, where, let's say, Vritasura's instructions to Indradev, that's different. But where like you're saying, where Vritasura is praying to the Lord, that would be considered a notable prayer. And we can recite those. Anything in the Bhagavatam is a notable prayer. But among those prayers, there are some that are very famous. So like the prayers of Queen Kunti, right? The prayers of Queen Kunti are very, very famous, and Srila Prabhupada told all of us to memorize those prayers and recite those prayers. The prayers of Brahma Samhita, said by Lord Brahma. So there are certain prayers that are very famous because our acharyas gave them a very special status. But some prayers may touch our hearts very specifically. And that's because we all have a unique relationship with Krishna. And so let's say if Vritasura's prayers deeply touch our heart, then we should recite those. There's nothing like one prayer is better than the other in the Bhagavatam. Other books, maybe there's some difference, but Srila Prabhupada, one place he says that every verse in the Bhagavatam is equivalent to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Of course, we're not impersonalists, so there is still a difference. Mahamantra is Mahamantra, and the verses are the verses. And so therefore we chant the Mahamantra and the beads and not the verses. But Prabhupada is making a point in terms of spiritual potency, in terms of its closeness to Krishna, that every verse in the Bhagavatam is as good as the Mahamantra. So any prayer in the Bhagavatam we can recite, but that prayer is something that we connect with, generally speaking. And so I hope that answers your question.
Prabhu, little like what I'm trying to say, Prabhu, is like when we see Bhishma Dev prayers, Bhishma Dev is not so much focused on him that I don't want this, I don't want that, and he's continuously glorifying the Lord that your yellow chadar falls down and his beauty and black raining cloud. But when it's Vritasura prayers, even though they are so touching to heart, but please correct me where I'm wrong, that where I feel like it is more focused on Lord, I want to serve you, I want to be with you, I want to come to you, I do not want wife, children, I don't want like the baby bird and everything. So I find a huge difference between prayers, and some prayers I feel like it is just only glorifying the Lord. Like Prahlad's prayers are also at one point they're so glorifying, but then Vritasura prayers are more focused on my service to Lord and me coming back. So is there a huge difference, or they are still
Yes, there is.
same, or what's
There is.
our
Yeah.
focus?
So now I see what you're asking for. Yes. So Satsarup Maharaj actually has one book. It's called Prayers or something like that. Praying to the Vandanam. The name of the book I think is Vandanam. And in that, he identifies some 7 or 8 different types of prayers that devotees offer to the Lord. So here in the Nectar devotion, it's describing sort of 3 ways of praying to the Lord, right? In humility, submission, in uh, uh, um, sorry, one was submitting oneself to the Lord. The other one was feeling oneself very unqualified, and the third one was to aspire to reach the Lord, right? To reach that stage. So we're discussing sort of 3 ways of trying to reach the Lord or offer prayers to the Lord. 3 ways of relating with Him. But Satsarup Maharaj, he gives 7 or 8 different types of prayers. Like some prayers are exactly what you're saying, are more philosophical in nature. So praying to the Lord, but that prayer is a form of glorification more than a prayer. Oh my Lord, you have unlimited universes, you have unlimited this, that. And so most of it is glorification. And at the end, then they say, please allow me to serve you. So there's prayers of glorification. There's prayers of to solve some problem, like Draupadi. She says, oh Lord, please save me, please save me. Then there's prayers of sort of remembering the Lord's wonderful pastimes. So you're absolutely right that there are many varieties of prayers, different types of prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and different devotees, according to different situations and circumstances, are offering different types of prayers to Krishna. So yes, you are correct in that. Where some prayers are more directly glorifying Krishna, like praying, talking about Krishna's beauty and his form, like Bhishma Devi saying to the Lord, and other prayers are more like Krishna, please free me from this material world, and then they're describing the nature of the material world.
Got it. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for clarifying and
His book
helping
is actually
me.
very nice. Yes, his book Vandanam is very nice. It's a whole book written just on prayer. You know, what are different prayers? You know, different types, all these things. Yes.
What is the name of the book, Prabhu?
That's I think it's Vandanam by Satsarup Maharaj. Satsarup Goswami.
Okay.
Satsarup Das Goswami. You can look it up online. I think you should be able to find it.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. There's one question from I don't know the name of the devotee. It's your aspiring servant. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Can you remind everyone of your name, Mataji?
Brandy.
Hare Krishna.
Can you not hear me?
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. 1 second. I'm just going to do this here. Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
It is Brandy. Hare Krishna. I had a few questions, but I'll just stick with the most important one first for time's sake. So it was a question regarding one of your first points that you made about like devotee feeling of unworthiness, like not feeling qualified. And so I wanted to ask why it wouldn't be spiritual to acknowledge the good that you have done to serve the Lord and his devotees, because someone could recite, those prayers and say that they feel unworthy, but it doesn't have to mean that they're not also saying that in order to get some sort of material or spiritual gain. It has to be when feeling, as I'm sure you understand. So I wrote down. Wait, hold on. Is it okay? So is it a balance spiritually between acknowledging that, you know, we're not qualified, but also, correct me if I'm wrong, but self-hatred and self-harm is also an offense to the Lord too, correct? So remembering the positive things that we've done, and you kind of brought this up too towards the end, as a motivator to remind us how good we feel doing devotional service and to pray to the Lord to allow us to continue to do that. Is that a good balance to seek? If my question made sense all around.
Yes, no, it's a nice question, and you'll find that King Kulashekar in his prayers, and also one of the prayers that I brought here in the slide, he says to the Lord, "Oh Lord, please remember all that I've done for you." And he says this, Prabhupada says, actually, he says this so that the devotee can, so that the devotee is not saying out of self-aggrandizement, but just that the devotee knows that, well, I've been serving Krishna, and hopefully that may evoke Krishna's causeless mercy upon me, although I'm still unqualified to know him. So, so it's both things, but it's not that the devotee feels they are bad or they have not done anything when they actually have. So the devotee is not unrealistic, but what the devotee recognizes is that in spite of what I've done for the Lord, that is not a qualification for me to realize the Lord. In spite of what I've done for Krishna, I'm still unworthy. And so what I've done may evoke the mercy of the Lord, but it does not make me deserving of the spiritual world. It does not make me deserving of Krishna service. So these prayers, which are feeling very fallen, they are actually genuine. They're not just saying it. They're saying it genuinely because they're saying, though they've done service, they're feeling, I'm still very unqualified. I'm still completely unqualified to serve Krishna. And that is the truth, because my own efforts is not sufficient enough. It is actually kind of similar to the Christian concept where Christians, they feel that their sin is so great that there's no way that they can atone for all their sins. And that's why they beg for grace. They beg for the grace of God, and the grace of Jesus Christ, who is God himself, saves them, because only God has the power to give himself, and only God has the power to actually erase their sins. So it's the same idea that although we may try our best, still that devotee was saying in that verse that we have heaps of sins and for millions of lifetimes. And so it's only the Lord's mercy that can actually liberate us.
Thank you. That definitely clarifies the mindset that I should try to have. Can I ask one more very brief question?
Sure.
You were talking about, whenever we were talking about Madhura Ras, you said whether or not we get there, we don't know. And I was wondering if you meant that specifically that would be due to our specific eternal Ras with Krishna.
So I got the first part, but I missed the second part. What were you saying regarding Madhurya Ras?
And whether or not we get there, we have to find out once we get there. So would that be due to our specific eternal Ras with Krishna? Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah. That may be one main reason for it, or just the will of the Lord. So for whatever reason, I mean, we may end up there, we may not. So that's there's many different explanations on it, different opinions on it. But yes, so either that's our original spiritual position, or that's the will of the Lord.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we'll move on to chapter 10. And in chapter 10, this discussion on the 64 items continues, but now Rupa Goswami moves on to numbers 43 to 46. So he covered all the way up to 42 in the previous section. Now we're going from 43 to 46. Scriptural evidence is given for items 43 to 46 of the 64 angas of bhakti, with emphasis on hearing and remembering. So this chapter is entitled Techniques for Hearing and Remembering about the Lord. So we will, these specific angas focus most on hearing and remembering. So number 43, one must hear about the Lord and his pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and similar books. In this age, it is very difficult to follow thoroughly the regulated principles and studies of the Vedas, which were formerly recommended. However, if one gives oral reception to the sound vibrated by great devotees and acharyas, that alone will give him relief from all material contamination. So, in this age, it is very difficult to follow thoroughly the regulated principles, but if one just hears from the great devotees, one gains relief from all material contamination. So we can't have that ideal life, but if we just hear, we get everything. Prabhupada in the Krishna book, he writes how the gopis of Vrindavan became great devotees simply by hearing. And although they're simple village girls, they knew all the Vedic scriptures because they were hearing from the great sages and the saints. 44, one must pray to the deity for his mercy. Again, here's one of prayer, but specifically in relation to the deity. One should pray to the deity for mercy. My dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. This is the Tenukampam Shushamikshamana. That simply, if we go on serving the Lord and whatever comes our way, accepting it, then at the end of our life, that devotional service becomes our rightful claim. Liberation becomes our rightful claim. Now, this is actually relates well with Brandy's question that liberation becomes the rightful claim of that devotee. So the scriptures are saying that, but the devotee doesn't feel that way. The devotee feels, I haven't been serving the Lord. I haven't done these things. I haven't offered obeisances to the Lord. But the scriptures are saying that no, for such a devotee, it becomes his rightful claim. One should remember the deity. Somewhere or the other, if someone establishes in his mind his continuous relationship with Krishna, this relationship is called remembrance. So remembrance doesn't necessarily mean that one is remembering, Krishna's pastimes with Mother Yashoda or with his friends. Remembrance means one is always remembering something about Krishna. So if we establish a continuous relationship with Krishna, this is called remembering. And remember that all 64 items of devotional service are serving one item, which is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So this remembrance part is actually the most important part. And how do we remember Krishna? Prabhupada here is saying that somehow or the other, if we can develop a continuous relationship with Krishna. So this means, like, just say someone has a very engaging service, a service that they feel is overwhelming. But the point is that that service is very nice for them because it forces them, it kind of pushes their mind to always think of Krishna. Then that becomes continuous remembrance of Krishna. So if we have constant, service for Krishna, we're taking anxiety for Krishna, then that can be actually a great blessing, because in this way we can always remember Krishna. One should meditate upon the deity. Remembrance means to think of Krishna in general. Meditation is a deeper, more detailed contemplation, which is of 4 types. So now we talked about remembrance, but now Rupa Goswami is talking about meditation. So meditation, how is that different than remembrance? And so here it's being described that there's 4 different types of meditation. To meditate means to engage the mind in thinking of the form of the Lord, the qualities of the Lord, the activities of the Lord, and the service of the Lord. So these are the 4 types of meditation. Meditation on the form. So the great yogis, they meditate on Krishna's form within the heart, on the qualities of the Lord. So many of the prayers in the Bhagavatam are glorifying the qualities, the activities of the Lord, so meditating on his pastimes. And one can also meditate on the service of the Lord, which is possibly the easiest of the 4. We can meditate on our service, that this is how I need to serve Krishna, what I need to do to make that happen, all these things. That becomes a form of meditation. So an example of meditation on service is Seva Dhyanam, the 4th one. In some of the Puranas, the evidence is given that if someone is simply meditating on devotional activities, he has achieved the desired result and has seen face to face the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this connection, there's a story in the Brahma Vaivarta Puran that in the city of Pratishthanapura in South India, there was once a Brahmana. Because the Brahmana was not very well-to-do financially, he decided that he would simply meditate on grand royal devotional activities. So he was serving the Lord in his meditation. And in that meditation, due to thinking about how to serve the Lord all the time, he actually started serving the Lord in that way and was then liberated by Lord Vishnu. And therefore, in a few places, Prabhupada actually says that making plans to serve the Lord, how to serve the Lord, is also a form of devotional service. So even if we're never able to realize those plans, but just thinking, can I do a Rath Yatra here for Lord Krishna's pleasure, and plan for it, and meditate on how to do it for the Lord, even if that never happens, and somehow the COVID comes and the festival doesn't take place, still that is still meditation, that is still service to the Lord, because it's being done with the mind. We can understand that things offered by the devotees, even in meditation, are accepted by the Lord, and they help one achieve the desired result. There's also the story of the Brahmana who was cooking sweet rice for the Lord in his meditation very intensely. And in his meditation, he was cooking the sweet rice and then putting it in the pot and then cooling it for the Lord. And in his meditation, in order to check if the sweet rice had cooled enough, the Brahmana put his fingers in this pot of sweet rice. But because the sweet rice was still very hot, his fingers got burnt. In his meditation, they got burnt. But because his meditation was so strong, in real life, outside of his meditation, his fingers also got burnt. And when that happened, then Lord Narayan began to laugh. And Lakshmi Devi asked, "Why are you laughing?" He says, "See, this is the condition of my devotee. Their meditation is so intense on me that in real life, his finger is burning." And then right after that, Lord Vishnu liberates this Brahmana. So this story has also been given. And there Prabhupada says that therefore wealth is no limitation for a devotee. Even in the mind, the devotee can serve the Lord. Now, we may not be able to do all that, meditate for hours on how we're making a big palace for the Lord and serving and bringing the deity there, because in previous times, people's minds were very trained and they're great yogis, so they could do that. So practically speaking, in our day, in our age, the way we will practice this very deep meditation on the service of the Lord is by making plans, meditating on how we can serve the Lord. And fulfilling those plans, trying to. But the very task of, just like sometimes in temples, there's all these committees and meetings, and we may think, what a waste of time. I attended all these meetings and I didn't serve Krishna at all. But this is not true. This is a very materialistic way to see things. when we are attending meetings and making plans with other devotees on how we can serve Krishna, then we are practicing seva dhyanam. Of course, our consciousness, our motivation, all of these things matter a lot. Is it pure devotional service? Do we have ulterior motives? Are we part of that committee as a way to boost our ego or to gain control or something like this? Or are we part of that committee to actually serve Krishna? But if we are actually part of that committee to serve Krishna, then that time is seva dhyana. It is not wasted. It is meditation on how I can serve Krishna. How can I please Prabhupada and the spiritual master? So this was a chapter 10, very short synopsis of it, because it's more of the same. Like, in other words, Prabhupada goes through the list and you can go through these yourself. Nothing more to discuss here. And then chapter 11. Now, evidence is given for the items 47 to 53 of the 64 angas of bhakti, with emphasis on servitude, friendship, and surrender. So now, from prayers to meditation, to remembering, hearing, and chanting, now we're moving to servitude, friendship, and surrender. And this is also very interesting. So please hear with rapt attention. Especially this discussion on friendship is very interesting. So number 47, one should render some voluntary service. One should do some service for the Lord. This is one of the principles of bhakti. I mean, these are so nice, actually. There should be like a handbook for devotees, because so many things we do in the temple, and then sometimes devotees feel like, am I really supposed to do this? Should I do this? Or why are we doing this? But when someone comes to the temple and we engage them in some voluntary service, this is not just to help, at the present moment so they can offer help, but this is actually one of the principles of bhakti. It is actually going to help them advance in spiritual life. It will help us also in advance in spiritual life when we do some voluntary service. If one is not interested in the pleasure of the Lord, but offers Krishna the results of one's activities, such as bhakti, but not pure bhakti, it is karma yoga. Prabhupada writes that the activities of Varna Ashram contain elements that are identical to those of bhakti. Therefore, even the karmakandis gradually become purified. To serve means to only think of pleasing the Lord, but a neophyte who is fixed on the goal of simply pleasing the Lord, of simply pleasing Krishna, but is still attracted to sense gratification, can offer the results of his or her activities as part of the gradual process of pure bhakti. So, the point being that we can offer voluntary service to the Lord even if we are still attached or attracted to sense gratification. So we're attracted to sense gratification. This means that we're still involved in material life. But does this mean that we're disqualified? We see faults in another devotee, right? That they're still materialistic, they're still into, making money and, getting this or that. And so are they disqualified from spiritual life? Here it's being said, no. That even if one is still attracted to sense gratification, if one can still serve the Lord and perform wonderful service, which will purify oneself and bring one to the platform of pure bhakti. And one can purify oneself by performing the activities of Varna Ashram, because those are bhakti conducive. And one can also purify oneself by offering the results of one's activities to Krishna. And in this way, become more and more purified. Then the next one, as we mentioned, so this one was more about servitude, offering some service to the Lord. Now about friendship. One should think of the Lord as one's friend. So one may question now that, I'm struggling I'm struggling to follow the regulated principles. How can I think of Krishna as my friend? Rupa Goswami saying this is one of the principles of bhakti, but how can I think of Krishna as my friend? So here it's described that there are two types of friendship. One is Vishvasa. The Lord is my friend and protector. So this is the way we normally think about friendship, that the Lord is my friend and protector. Krishna is my friend. So Krishna says in the Gita, Suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatamam shantamrichati. Suhridam sarvabhutanam. That I am the dearest friend of all living beings. Suhridam, not just Hridam, but Suhridam, very, very dear friend. Krishna is the dearest friend of all living beings. So the devotee recognizes this, the devotee knows this, and therefore the devotee knows that Krishna will protect me. Krishna will do whatever is right for me because Krishna is my friend and protector. So this is number one. We have to think of the Lord as a friend, not as a judge, not as someone who's going to destroy us, or not just as a king, but also as a friend. The second is mitra, and this is the other way around. Mitra means I am the Lord's friend. So when you're a friend with someone, they are your friend. You have confidence in them. That's why you have a friendship. But friendship with someone also means that you are their friend, that you are also offering your heart, your service to them. I am the Lord's friend, and I try to make him happy. So becoming a friend of Krishna means trying to make Krishna happy. Because what do we like to do with our friends? I just doing this recently. What do we like to do with our friends? We like to make them happy. We like to do something or say something so that they'll be happy. And that's the meaning of friendship. So when a devotee is serving the Lord, then they're acting as the Lord's friend, because they're acting in a way that makes the Lord happy. So I am also the Lord's friend, which is, seems awkward. How can I be the Lord's friend? But I can be. I am the Lord's friend because he's my friend. He says that in the Gita, and I will try to make him happy. And most specifically, what Prabhupada says is that the devotee who is a preacher, who is preaching Krishna consciousness, is acting in the mood of a friend of the Lord. Is acting in the mood of the Lord's friend. Because the devotee in that way is preaching to others because they know that this makes Krishna happy. And because it makes Krishna happy, because they do it, when they do it, they are acting as a friend to the Lord. Just like one of the key qualities of a friend is that a real friend will try to reverse any, you could say, bad propaganda against his friend, and will try to make his friend popular, famous, popular. That's the meaning of friendship. If you're friends with someone, or you're brothers with someone, but you're always just trying to avoid that person, or you're not interested in that person's you're trying to hide that person, then what is the meaning of friendship there? So we know this in the material world, right? We know that this is the meaning in the material world. So in the spiritual context, how much it is true that if someone is actually a friend to the Lord, they by definition will try to preach his glories so that people will glorify Krishna. Vishvasa means to have strong faith or confidence in the Lord as one's benefactor. So this was the first one. Means to have strong faith or confidence in the Lord as one's benefactor. The terms Shraddha, faith, and Vishvasa are synonymous, but are used with different shades of meaning. Here, Vishvasa is the practice for bringing about a particular result of Shraddha, and also being the topmost result of Shraddha. So, very interesting here. So, Shraddha is faith. When we have faith in someone, we're friends with them. But then what's the difference between Shraddha and Vishwas? Vishwas brings the Vishwas is the result of faith. In other words, when we have faith in someone, then we take them to be our protector. they're our friend and protector, right? Because I have faith in this person, therefore I'm their friend and protector. And secondly, when someone is our friend and protector, then we become more faithful towards them. We express that faith, and that faith increases. But particularly friendship happens when we have faith in someone. When we have faith in someone, it's a particular result of Shraddha is Vishwas. We become friends with them. When we have faith in someone, we become friends with them. The devotee who has confidence in devotional service to the Lord systematically follows the rules and regulations with the faith that he will achieve the platform of transcendental life. So a quality of friendship with the Lord is confidence in the Lord. The devotee is so confident in the Lord that the devotee, because of that confidence, is able to give up everything. The devotee gives up everything in this world for service, to surrender themselves to Krishna. How can you surrender yourself to Krishna if you don't have confidence in him? Prahlad Maharaj, how could he jump off of the cliff unless he was confident that Krishna is his friend and Krishna is there to catch him? He had that confidence, therefore he jumped off the cliff. No problem. Did not resist, because he knew that Krishna is there on the bottom to protect me. In the same way, Draupadi also expresses this Vishvasa. O Govinda, remembering again and again your promise that your devotee will never perish, I maintain my life. So she was insulted so badly. She was, most horrible type of insult that any person could endure. Yet she had confidence in Krishna's promise that his devotee never perishes, and giving up her life would be a sign of a lack of confidence. It would be breaking that confidence in the Lord, and therefore the devotee, as a devotee, she did not give up her life, because she knew that Krishna will protect me, and that was a sign of her great devotion. In all kinds of tribulations, I simply remember your promise, and thus I live. So beautiful, so wonderful. In all kinds of tribulations, I simply remember your promise, and thus I live. The lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are one's life and soul. One will not give up his shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, even for a single moment. So that friendship, that confidence, this is exclusive friendship, right? Also, that this is, complete surrender and friendship to Krishna, that I don't need anything else in the three worlds other than Krishna's lotus feet. Even in exchange for the benediction of ruling the entire universe or taking the post of a devata. So I don't wish to have anything else. And even in exchange for the entire, heavenly planets, I will not give up Krishna's lotus feet. So Vishwas is, the Lord is my benefactor and friend and my only shelter. From him only I get maintenance and protection. I take solace in his promise of protection in all difficulties, and I will not give up his shelter for any material opulence. I take solace in his promise of protection in all difficulties, and I will give up his shelter, and I will not give up his shelter for any material opulence. The second type of devotional friendship is to become a well-wisher of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada says this. So the second type is that we become a well-wisher of Krishna, and that is called Mitra. Anyone who is preaching the confidential message of the Gita to the people in general is so dear to Krishna that no one can be equal to him in human society. Such a nice quote. Anyone who is preaching the confidential message of the Gita to the people in general is so dear to Krishna that no one can be equal to him in human society. Sometimes we think these activities to be ordinary, book distribution, serving the Lord, preaching, all these things, that these are just ordinary things. But this is not ordinary. No one in this world is equal to him or dear to him. Krishna is saying this. In regard to worshipping the Lord as a friend, the Agastya Samhita states that a devotee engaged in performing devotional service by Shravanam and Kirtanam sometimes wants to see the Lord personally, and for this purpose he resides in the temple. In regard to worshipping the Lord as a friend, the Agastya Samhita states that a devotee engaged in performing devotional service by Shravanam and Kirtanam sometimes wants to see the Lord personally, and for this purpose he resides in the temple. So again and again, you'll also notice that one of the things that is emphasized by Rupa Goswami, by Srila Prabhupada in these items is the temple and the importance of the temple in the devotee's life. Worshipping the deity, visiting the temple, offering some service at the temple. It's actually very obvious and very repeated, this connection with the temple. So now, as far as how this relates to friendship, a person who is dedicated to serving the Lord and out of friendship sees and treats him like as a human being, as a human, lies down in the Lord's temple. So once in a while we read in the scriptures that the devotee is sleeping in the temple. The pujari just sleeps in the temple. Lying down in the temple should be classified as Raganuga sadhana because of disregard for Vaidhi sadhana. However, attraction for feelings of friendship is cultivated in both Raganuga sadhana and Vaidhi sadhana. So what's the point here? Before we go to the summary, I'll explain that generally speaking, lying down in the temple or sleeping in the temple is considered to be an offense, a great offense to the Lord. You don't sleep in the temple, you don't lie down in the temple, because the temple is the Lord's abode and we don't sleep there, right? We sleep not in the king's palace, right? We sleep in our own hermitage. So Krishna is the great king, Krishna is the most greatest person. But a devotee may sometimes, as described in the scripture so many times, the devotee may sometimes lie down in the temple. And this is not out of disrespect for the deity, because it is, an offense. It is disregarding one of the principles of deity worship. But this is because the devotee feels so deeply friendly towards Krishna, and because the devotee has this deep feeling of friendship, that the devotee thinks, how can I be separated from Krishna? And decides to even sleep in the temple room where the Lord is there. So that is actually on the platform Raganuga sadhana. But it can also be cultivated on the stage of Vaidhi sadhana. So even if one's not on the Raganuga platform, on the platform of Vaidhi sadhana, one may have these feelings that, no, I need to sleep in the temple or sleep near the temple or next to the temple because I need to take care of Krishna. I need to take care of the deities. And that's on the platform of Vaidhi sadhana, but it's still not an offense because of that intense feeling of friendship. So the summary of Mitra is, I am the well-wisher of the Lord. Like him, I want to help others and relieve their distress. I especially show my friendship with the Lord by teaching others of his glories and the secret of surrender to him. I want to relieve the Lord of any inconvenience out of friendship. I may also in friendship see the Lord in intimacy with informality. So this is a very important point here, that a devotee of the Lord is being a friend to the Lord by doing the Lord's work. That is, wanting to help others and relieve their distress. This is so important. This is the Lord's work. One is serving the Lord because one knows that this is how I will show my friendship to Krishna. Krishna needs my help to do this. This is Krishna's work, right? Krishna is quite possible he can do everything. But by teaching others about the Lord, by glorifying him, I'm doing Krishna's work for him because I want to be a friend. I want to be friendly to Krishna. And so, yeah, so the key thing is, of course, people like Arjuna and the coward boys are friends of Krishna. And they forget all formality. It's with complete intimacy and informality. But here, as far as this principle of Vaidhi sadhana, being a friend of the Lord, this is a key point. As a principle of sadhana, being a friend of the Lord, one is not necessarily on the platform where one loses one's formality with the Lord, but one is practicing that principle of friendship in this way. One is cultivating the feeling of friendship in this way. It's not a Arjuna like Raganuga level, but it's a level on sadhana, but acting in friendship on that level. One should offer everything to the Lord, Atma Nivedanam, surrendering everything, considering oneself the possession of the Lord. So this is obviously, we say Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So you have Sakyam and then Atma Nivedanam. Friendship is so close. I mean, friends are friends, right? They're so close. Friendship is there. And then all of that culminates in Atma Nivedanam, surrendering everything, even going perhaps a step beyond friendship, considering oneself the possession of the Lord. Self is sometimes considered to refer to the spiritual self or soul, and self is sometimes considered to refer to the mind or to the body. Full self-surrender, therefore, means not only surrendering oneself as spirit soul, but also surrendering one's mind and body to the service of the Lord. Offering the body as Atma is illustrated in Bhakti Viveka. Just as one does not worry about an animal that has been sold, one should not offer this body to the Lord and be disinterested in its maintenance. In other words, one should not bother. Offering the body as Atma is illustrated in Bhakti Viveka. Just as one does not worry about an animal that has been sold, one should offer this body to the Lord and be disinterested in its maintenance. In other words, one should not bother about his personal or family maintenance or sustenance. If one is actually surrendered in body and soul, he should always remember that his only concern is to be engaged in the service of the Lord. So this is what Atma Nivedanam means. Atma Nivedanam does not just mean offering the self, but it also refers to the mind and the body. Mind, body, and soul, words, everything. So surrendering oneself also means surrendering one's body. And surrendering to body means that if we are actually Atma Nivedanam, then we offer our body to the service of the Lord. But then that means we're really not interested in its maintenance. Of course, basic maintenance is necessary to even offer it to the Lord, right? Basic maintenance of the body is needed in order to serve the Lord with the body. But one does not bother much about one's personal or family maintenance. One does not cultivate the desire and consciousness of bodily aggrandizement. One's only concern is to be engaged in the service of the Lord. And one takes whatever is needed for that service. One accepts whatever is needed. Because he has offered his body to the Lord, he gives up all activities for pleasure in this life and the next, which nourish his body and things related to that body. The Lord then thinks, I desire to make him special. He then attains freedom from death, amritatvam, and attains similarity to me, atvam bhuyaya. This means that he attains liberation in the form of attaining his sarupa and sarshti powers like those of the Lord. Surrender of self as mind. So this is the devotee, when he offers his body to the Lord, He gives up all pleasure, all activities for material pleasure, which nourish the body. And when he does that, then the Lord is saying he gains a spiritual form. Giving up of attraction for the material form, one gets the spiritual form, which is the Svarupa, and powers like the Lord. Then surrender of the mind. My mind, my household affairs, my body, whatever is in my possession, my dear Lord, I offer to you for your service. Now you can do with them as you like. You are the supreme possessor of everything. So if you like, you can kill me. Or if you like, you can give me protection. All authority belongs to you. I have nothing to claim as my own. So this is the mood of the acharyas. This is the mood of the devotee, that one is also surrendering their mind to Krishna. So giving up all conceptions of gain and safety. When we give up all conceptions of gain and safety, then that means we have surrendered our mind to Krishna. Sampade vipade jivana marane dai mama gela tua opade bharane. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is one of his songs. He says, this is his mood, that whatever happens, marobi rakobi jo ichha tuar, manasa deho geho jo ichha tuar. Then surrender of self as soul. So we looked at surrender of the body, the mind, and now the soul. Sri Yamunacharya in his prayers to the Lord has expressed a similar idea in the following words. My dear Lord, I may be living within some body as a human being or as a demigod, but whatever mode of life, I do not mind, because these bodies are simply byproducts of the three modes of material nature. And I, who am in possession of these bodies, am surrendering myself unto you. So here, this is such a nice verse, because Yamunacharya, he's saying that, well, these bodies are really not even important. I mean, he's on that spiritual level. He's not even seeing his body to be important. So he's saying, therefore, I, this person who changes bodies, am surrendering myself, that is my soul, unto you. How wonderful, right? So he's saying, I, the soul, am surrendering unto you. Atmanivedanam in its pure form is rare because of the difficulty in execution, not because of having an elevated status, since it may be executed even without bhava. However, if Atmanivedanam becomes mixed with emotional relationships, it will become rare because of its elevated status as well. So in this part, it's saying that Atmanivedanam does not necessarily, again, like we talked about friendship, it does not necessarily have to come on the level of Raganuga Bhakti or Bhava Bhakti, because on that level, naturally there's Atmanivedanam. Like Mother Yashoda, for example, right? There's Atmanivedanam. She's given mind, body, and soul to Krishna. She doesn't know anything else other than Krishna. When Krishna jumped in the Yamuna river, she was going to jump herself. She has no even understanding of her existence, of her life separate from Krishna, because of that spontaneous love and attraction to Krishna. So that's Atmanivedanam mixed with emotional relationships, and that's obviously very rare. But Atmanivedanam can also be practiced on the level of sadhana, when we don't have that spontaneous love, just like Sakhya Ras can be practiced on the level of sadhana. But it's the most difficult, it's rare, not here this section is saying, not because it's on the level of bhava, it's rare because it's very difficult to do. So even on the platform of sadhana, it's very, very difficult to do, because who can give mind, body, and soul to Krishna? Well, only a pure devotee can. So it's saying it's not just rare because it's on the level of bhava, even on the level of sadhana, it's very difficult to reach this stage because of the difficulty in actually doing it. So, so it's rare on the level of sadhana, and on the level of bhava, it's there I mean, it's very easy, but bhava itself is very rare to achieve. So on that level, it's also rare, you see. And then finally, one should offer a favorite article such as a food or garment to Krishna. So whatever is favorite for us, we should offer to Krishna. One should take all kinds of risks and perform all endeavors for Krishna's benefit. Very interesting one. One should take all kinds of risks for Krishna and perform all endeavors for Krishna's benefit. So the thing that we do in material life for ourselves, for material progress, is we take risk. Not very often, but we sometimes do. But although we're very interested in serving Krishna, we're very enthusiastic in serving Krishna, the one thing we are not willing to do in spiritual life, I've noticed this about my own life, that's why I'm saying this, is to take risks in spiritual life. Then in spiritual life, we always play it safe. It's like, well, I need to have a sufficient bank balance. I need to be sufficiently situated. Only then I can donate money or give money for Krishna. I need to, have, everything in place. Only then I can, do this for Krishna. And so we don't want to take risk for Krishna. Well, if I do this, I could become bankrupt and my whole family is going to, this or that. But that's the one thing that Prabhupada was willing to do. That's why Prabhupada is, one of the reasons why he was so great. He is so great. Because he had every reason not to come to the West. He was an old man in frail health. There's one beautiful song by a devotee, a poem by a devotee, where he says, he's praising Srila Prabhupada. It's a poem to Srila Prabhupada. And it says that Srila Prabhupada, no one would have blamed you. No one would have even questioned you if at that old age you would have stayed in Vrindavan Dham, having given up, renounced your entire family life as a great saint and soul. You would have stayed in Vrindavan Dham and you would have served Krishna. No one would have blamed you. Everyone would have think you're glorious. He could have stayed there, with his books and his cows and his, nice temples. And he could have just stayed there, leading the perfect, ideal, mode of goodness, transcendental life. And no one would have blamed you. Poem says, if you were, if you came to America and you took that ship and, on the way you had 2 heart attacks, which of course he didn't know in advance. And after you had those 2 heart attacks, if you came to America and then you took the next ship back, certainly no one would have blamed you. Because after taking that risk, obviously, even if you have 1 heart attack, I mean, imagine if we had 1 heart attack, we would certainly terminate our services at the temple, right? We would say, Prabhu, I got a heart attack. I'm in the hospital. So even if we had 1 heart attack, we would have every reason to give up our seva to the Lord. So if you would have turned back and taken the next ship back, which Prabhupada actually says that every day he would go and he would book the next ship back, thinking that I should take it. He wouldn't book it. He would go and ask the schedule from the captain and say, when is the next ship going? Because he felt so lonely and lost there. It's so much also personal, physical pain from his frail health. And so the poem says, if you had gone back, Srila Prabhupada, no one would have blamed you at that point. And then furthermore, then after that, after being in New York and struggling alone for a few months, for the first few months, Prabhupada didn't get any success. After that, Srila Prabhupada, if you would have gone back, no one would have blamed you. Everyone would have said that how heroic he was to fulfill his guru's instructions. He crossed the ocean. He came to the Western world. He put the books in a few libraries and he went back, justifiably so. No one would have blamed you, Srila Prabhupada. Yet you still chose to be here. You still chose to be here and to risk everything and to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. So, that's principle 51 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that Prabhupada was the living embodiment of this principle. And it makes us understand how deep these principles are. That Prabhupada, of course, knew all the scriptures very deeply, that he was acting on this principle, that he was willing to take any risk for Lord Krishna. And that's what made him Prabhupada. Of course, we cannot imitate. We should, we all have our different capacities and levels of service. But the point is that Srila Prabhupada took all the risks for Krishna, and that was what made him who he was. Narad Pancharatra. Not only should a devotee engage himself in the prescribed duties of devotional service, which are mentioned in the revealed scriptures, but he should also perform the duties of his practical life in Krishna consciousness. For example, a devotee who has a great establishment or factory may offer the fruits of such a material possession for the service of the Lord. So devotional service does not just mean doing our sadhana, which is very important. It's the backbone. So it's doing our sadhana, but also doing our duties for the service of the Lord. Whatever our profession is, we engage it in the service of the Lord. So why are we saying this? Because in every condition, one should be a surrendered soul. Prabhupada was a surrendered soul when he was a sannyasi. Prabhupada was a surrendered soul when he was a householder also. He was reading Srimad Bhagavatam 4 hours every day as a householder. Number 52, Sharanapati, accepting the Lord's protection. So offering oneself completely to the Lord and then accepting the Lord's protections. Then the Lord gives the protection, one has to accept it. With faith in protection by body, minds, and words. So one has to accept the Lord's protection with faith, that he will protect my body, minds, and words. My dear Lord, a person who has surrendered himself unto you, who is in firm conviction that he is yours, and who actually acts in that way by his body, mind, and words, can actually relish transcendental bliss. In the Nrsimha Purana, Lord Nrsimhadev says, anyone who prays unto me and takes shelter of me becomes my ward, and I protect him always from all sorts of calamities. So these verses are telling us that if we have firm conviction in the protection of the Lord, then we can actually relish the Lord's bliss. Then one can actually become the Lord's ward. If Krishna likes, he may keep his devotee in a poverty-stricken condition, or if he likes, he may keep him in an opulent position. The devotee should not be concerned in either case. He should simply be very serious about trying to satisfy the Lord by rendering him service. What is the relationship between Atma Nivedanam, item 49, and Sharanapati, item 52? So, item 52 was accepting the Lord's protection, and then item 49 was surrendering everything, considering oneself the possession of the Lord. So what is exactly the difference between these two? They seem very similar. The difference is a surrendered devotee may engage in both of these limbs of bhakti, thus encompassing all 6 aspects of surrender. Some devotees take up only one. For example, while Rupa Goswami describes Atma Nivedanam as very rare because of its difficulty, many devotees will find Sharanapati a comforting and desired way to live. So, Atma Nivedanam was where we surrender mind, body, and words to the Lord. So that's very, very difficult, right? But something more simpler is Sharanapati, which is basically that one accepts the Lord's protection. Accepting the Lord's protection is much easier, right? So one is unable to offer everything to the Lord, but then one accepts that the Lord is my protector, and when difficulties come, then the devotee only takes shelter of Krishna in mind, body, and words. Conversely, at advanced levels of spiritual realization, some devotees have a mood that they are caring for the Lord. Such devotees include those who act as his parents and teachers in his various incarnations. Yes, so caring for the Lord is a higher understanding than being cared by the Lord. Sharanapati is being cared by the Lord. Thus, Sharanapati would be at odds with their ecstatic loving mood. So they cannot exactly follow Sharanapati because they are caring for the Lord. Then how can they accept the protection of the Lord? Like Vasudev, he felt, I need to protect the Lord. If he is feeling that the Lord is protecting me, then how could he then take shelter of the Lord? How could he then protect the Lord if the Lord is protecting him? So his mood was different. Yet such persons like Vasudev could fully take up the practice of Atmanivedanam, where he risked everything to take Krishna across the Yamuna river and to take him to Vrindavan. Of course, from an ontological perspective, even those in an ecstatic ecstasy of feeling, they are the ones who care for Krishna, are really under his care and protection. So it is due to the bhava that the devotee feels that they are caring for Krishna. Actually, everyone's under Krishna's care, but because of that bhava, they cannot fulfill, or you could say practice, the principle of Sharanapati. They will practice the principle of Atmanivedanam. One should pour water on the tulsi tree. So this is one of the principles of bhakti, and you'll notice that most of these principles are covered in the morning program. So in our morning program, every morning we offer water to tulsi, which is very nice. So we had a similar one that came before, right? You may recall item 10 was to respect living entities who are related to Krishna, like banyan trees, cows, brahmanas, and tulsi. So item 10 was giving us the attitude. What attitude should we have towards tulsi? The mindset, the feeling of reverence, devotion towards tulsi, so that we can perform item 53. In which attitude should we be serving Tulsi Devi? In the attitude of respect due to her relationship with Krishna. So this item 53 offers specific ways in which to daily serve such entities, especially Tulsi Devi. Ways to serve Tulsi: simply by seeing, simply by praying, simply by bowing before, simply by hearing about, or simply by serving the Tulsi tree. There is always auspiciousness. So this is the benediction of serving Tulsi Maharani, that by serving Tulsi Maharani, the mercy of the Lord, and we can serve Tulsi Maharani simply by bowing down before her, by offering her some water. Okay, so we are done with chapters 10 and 11. So we finished chapter 9, which was for last time we did 9, and today we did 10 and 11. So I'll stop at this point. I think we're right on time. And if there's any comments or questions, I can take a few. Yes, perhaps we'll start with those who did not go first. So go before. So Pushpanjali Mataji, you can go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so
Hare
much
Krishna.
for the class. Prabhuji, it's just a quick reminder about the exam. We're almost more than halfway through.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Whenever you have the information.
Yes.
And yes, Prabhuji. And then another small question about deities. Last class, you mentioned that we should treat the deities as if they're a person. So when we go out of town for a short time, we put the deities to sleep. So some suggest that, we should offer maybe some dry fruits and those things to the deities. But I find that little confusing. Like if I'm thinking if my deities are sleeping, then how are they going to eat? And if they're going to wake up to eat, then nobody's there to take care of them. They're just, in the closed altar. So what's the suggested thing to do?
Well, again, it depends on our level of, you could say, personal standard. It depends on our own standard. And so some devotees, when they travel, they leave the deity at home and they, so to say, put them to sleep. For they put them on their beds and then they travel. Other devotees take them with them, and then they serve them while they're traveling. Like my Guru Maharaj, he travels with all of his 250 Shaligram Shilas and deities and all these things. He travels with the whole group, and then he takes them, and every place he goes, he worships them for 2 or 3 hours. So he travels with all of his deities, and then he worships them for 2 or 3 hours every single day. So, I mean, the more we do, the better it is. And so what was your question more specifically? I forgot regarding this.
So if we're putting them to sleep, should we offer some bhoga and go or not?
Yes, some devotees do that. They like leave nuts and fruit, not something that, not fruits, so nuts, water, something that does not spoil over time. So yeah, they do that also.
Okay. Thank you.
That can be done, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Vivek?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had a question. So you were explaining about Atmanivedanam and the differences of Sharanapati, and you're also mentioning that Atmanivedanam is a very high advanced stage. Because in some of the purports in Srimad Bhagavatam also, Srila Prabhupada writes essentially the same thing. Like he mentions out of the 9 processes of devotional service, Sakyam and Atmanivedanam is actually in the Raga Marga, but the other 7 parts of the 9 processes of devotional service are in Vaidhi. But then again in here we are seeing that Atmanivedanam, friendship is being mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But it was interesting that Prabhupada never talks about, at least in the English translation, we do not have access to anything else apart from Prabhupada book. But in that he never mentions anything about friendship. He talks only in the mode of servitude. So how do we understand that? Because in a stage of practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, that so is the understanding that as and when we regularly practice Vaidhi in the form of hearing and chanting, that mode of friendship will arise even in Vaidhi Bhakti? Is that how we need to understand?
So I'm not sure if I followed the entire question, so we'll do it part by part. But yes, the point is that in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, when we are serving Krishna, then there are different moods within Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. So if a devotee is hearing and chanting about the Lord, they can go back home, back to God. It's simply by that process, right? Hearing and chanting are the most essential, most important. But Prabhupada said that we cannot hear and chant all the time, and therefore we're not on the level to do that all the time, like Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. And therefore, it is the duty of the spiritual master to give the disciple many, many services, so that the disciple has many, many engagements, so that they can always be engaged in Krishna service. So therefore, Prabhupada gave us so many different types of projects, so many different types of services. Some devotees are engaged in book distribution, others engaged in cow protection, others engaged in prasadam distribution, others engaged in temple construction. So all of these are different services to try to preach Krishna consciousness. Now, when we do these services out of duty, my guru has told me to do this. Honestly, I don't care about other people because I'm just not on that level. I mean, sometimes we may feel this way, right? That, what can I do for the world? There's so many people, they're all suffering. What can I do? But I'm just doing it because my guru has told me out of duty, I'm doing it. So that is service. That is called pada sevanam. One is serving the lotus feet of the guru by following the guru's instructions or by following Krishna's instructions. But as one does that service of, let's say, book distribution, and one starts seeing the change in people's lives, I'm giving this book and, this person, their life transformed, or you give this book and it stops someone from doing suicide. One devotee had this experience. They gave a book to a very unwilling man who was sitting in his car, and that man would not open the window. He was sitting in his car with all the windows closed, and so um, the devotee was like, pull down your window, I want to give you a book. And so he was like cursing the devotee, leave me alone, I want to. So the devotee just left the book on his windshield. And then about a week later, the man came to the temple and he said that I was actually sitting in my car with the carbon monoxide vent in my car, waiting for it to kill me. He was planning suicide, and therefore he didn't want to open the window because then fresh air would come in. But while that was happening, he thought, well, this man has left this book on my windshield wiper. I might as well read something while I'm waiting to die. So he pulls down his window for 1 minute, he takes the book and he starts reading it. And when he reads it, it's the book Civilization of Transcendence. And he reads in there that all of civilization, Prabhupada says, is mad. And so then he reads it and he thinks, I'm not mad, but the whole civilization is mad. And look, here there's a book that agrees with me. And so then he leaves the car and he goes to the temple where that devotee was. And then he becomes a devotee. So in the course of doing this service, one starts to get a feel for it and realize that, wow, what great benefit is being done. And then one does that same service, but one does it with great feeling, with the feeling of wanting to become a friend of the Lord, to want to glorify the Lord, to want to praise the Lord. And so then in that feeling, you have Sakyaras. So it's the same service. It's also in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But now from doing the service just because we know it's good for us, or just because it's written in the scriptures, one is doing it with the emotion of, no, I want to distribute 1,000 books. Why? Because one is doing it with the emotion of wanting to help others. And that's the Lord's work. And so if we're also participating in the Lord's work, then one is being a friend to Krishna. And one's also doing it with the mood of wanting to help Krishna, because the devotee knows that Krishna wants all these conditioned souls back to him. So if the devotee's doing this with a feeling, let me bring these children of Krishna back to him, then one is being a friend of Krishna. One's acting out of that friendship mood. So that's the mood changes, the service remains the same.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving that example. It really helped. One more follow-up question, Prabhuji. So then, how do we? Sorry to ask you many questions, but then how do we understand the statement of Lord Chaitanya speaking of that we have to be in the mode of servant of the servant of the servant, that we are not. So how does that relate to this discussion?
Yes. So one has that feeling, right? That mood that I want to help the Lord, but recognizing one's position that I want to help the Lord by helping the servants of the servants of the servants of the servants of the Lord. And that's actually a very nice point that you made. That this is where the desire to serve sort of mixes with the mood of humility. This is why the devotee prefers to take the process that's been laid down by the pure devotee. And Prabhupada himself, he said, you don't need to manufacture anything, just execute the process that I've given. And that's because he was executing the process that his spiritual master gave. And he was executing the process that his spiritual master gave. So it was not because he thought he was great, but because he was following the same practice, the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Lord Chaitanya knows what is the best way to change all of humanity. Lord Chaitanya knows what is the best process to change people's hearts and to liberate everyone. So what is our role? Our role is that we're being the friend of the Lord, but we're doing it as a service to Srila Prabhupada. We're doing it in the process that Srila Prabhupada gave us. We're not trying we recognize that we don't have the direct connection with Krishna. So we don't know what is the best way to serve the Lord. what is the best way to be a friend to him? But Prabhupada knows. So okay, I'll just repeat his instructions. So servant of the servant does not mean that we don't have a relationship with Krishna. Even the gopis in Vrindavan, they're there because they feel that they're the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, and they're directly dancing with Krishna. So servant of the servant doesn't mean that we cannot feel that we are a friend of Krishna. At the end of the day, we're chanting Hare Krishna. We're directly connecting ourselves with Krishna, right? But servant of the servant means that we are serving Krishna in a way that his servants have told us to serve him. And that is servant of the servant, along with being a friend with Krishna. Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, that really helps to understand the mood in which we need to understand that statement. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Very nice. Nice point. Nice question, Prabhu. Brandy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I guess the next question that I would ask is about prayer. Just I've asked this question before, but I always appreciate clarification. Obviously, reciting notable prayers are best in the sense that we are not qualified, as we discussed, but also too, because we're not on a platform where we can't necessarily ask Krishna for nothing, wouldn't it be more helpful and beneficial to us as well to pray to him in those moments of uncertainty? Krishna, show me what I'm supposed to do in this situation, and pray to him in that way, because there are times where I pray to Krishna and I say, I don't have the words, I don't know what I'm supposed to ask for, but I'm coming to you because I know that you know what I need, and I know that you're the only one who can give me that. So is that also a form of prayer that is recommended?
Yes. Definitely very nice. We should pray to the Lord with heartfelt prayers. Prabhupada says we should pray to the deity, particularly in relation to the deity, because the deity is like our connection with Krishna, right? Krishna is personal and he's a person. So the devotee prays to the deity. Prabhupada would pray to the deity. Also, what's very interesting, along with that point, what's interesting is that different religions of the world, different, you could say, processes of bhakti, have different practices which are more central to them than other practices. So Vandanam, the process of prayer, is very important, and we've been discussing it. It's mentioned so many times in the 64 items. But it's interesting that in the 5 most potent items of devotional service, Rupa Goswami does not mention it. It's not mentioned as one of the 5 most important ones. And it's also something that we observe that in the devotional, in the Vaishnava community, devotees don't pray that much as, for example, Christians do. So in the tradition of Christianity, prayer is like number 1. It's like Vandanam. It's like all about prayer. Pray to God, prayers. They sing prayers, sing songs. And you don't find that same amount of prayer in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So the question that comes up is, which you're asking is, well, why not? Why isn't there like more focus on prayer? And the reason is because this type of prayer, which you are mentioning, is covered in some ways, you could say, is taken care of by the chanting of the holy name. Because the chanting of the holy name is a form of prayer, because chanting is calling out to Krishna. It's a very basic form of prayer. And it's when we're chanting, the only reason we would chant is we're expressing our earnestness to Krishna for help. We're chanting out his names. Help in all regards, in every sphere of life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Please Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Without actually saying something to the Lord, we are praying to the Lord. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the commentary to one of these verses, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur actually points this out, and it's actually spelled out. It's actually said explicitly there, where he said that among the different processes of spirituality, he says the topmost process is bhakti, or devotional service to Krishna. Among the different processes of bhakti, he says hearing, chanting are the two most potent, or you could say important, processes of bhakti. Or maybe he just says chanting. I can't remember exactly the sequence. And then he says, amongst chanting, there's three types of chanting. There's chanting of God's names, God's qualities, and God's pastimes. Among different types of hearing and chanting. Hearing, chanting, and remembering. So the highest process is bhakti. Then he says, amongst that is hearing, chanting, and remembering. And in hearing, chanting, remembering, there's guna, nama, and rupa. Hearing, chanting, and remembering of Krishna's form, qualities, and name. And he says, among those processes, the highest process, the most important process, is chanting of Krishna's names. Very interesting, right? So, like right now, we are also hearing and chanting, but we are hearing and chanting about Krishna's qualities and pastimes, correct? Right? We're talking about Krishna's, about Krishna, things. And in the morning when we chant our 16 rounds, we're chanting Krishna's names. So he says all these three are different types of hearing and chanting. But of the three, the chanting of Krishna's names is most potent and most important in this day and age, in this Kali Yuga. So therefore, the devotee may pray, and Prabhupada did do that, and we should definitely do that. It's greatly encouraged. But just as a way of understanding that, well, why is prayer, and especially personal prayer, not as popular in our tradition as it is, let's say, in Christianity or in other monotheistic religious traditions? It's for this reason. Because the Acharyas believe, the great souls believe that if we have any spare time, we should be chanting Krishna's names. Because that chanting has this amazing, powerful effect on us that that no other process has upon us. And initially it's not so perceptive, but if we keep on chanting, if we keep going with it, eventually the name will get revealed to us, and once we realize that name, there's just like, it solves all of our problems. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it.
Thank you. I just want to say I had an experience recently at a little bazaar on one Saturday morning. And I ran into an old friend. Her name is Sam, and she's a devout Christian. And she introduced me to her friend who is also Christian there. And I mentioned for some reason that I woke up that morning and my hip was really hurting, the right side of my hip. And immediately they were like, "Can we pray over you? Can we pray over you?" And I allowed them to. And it was very sweet. But situations like that are nice reminders to me for a certain type of mindset. And it's that, if I'm thinking about how my hip is hurting, why not at least direct those thoughts from a more self-centered point of view towards Krishna, if it be your will, please, help my hip not hurt as bad so I can do more service for you. And I just thought that was a lovely way to like flip that perspective. And also too, just to practice speaking to Krishna as a friend, because we discuss these things with our friends. So it just makes the relationship more tangible in some ways. So thank you.
Yes. No, very nice point. And this example that you gave, like exactly that's it. The general response in Christianity and things is that when someone has something like this, then people pray to God. And you'll find in the Vaishnava culture, when something like this happens, all the devotees will start chanting. Right? They'll start doing kirtan or chanting. When someone's giving up their body or someone's sick, they're chanting, doing kirtan. Prayers, of course, are said, and people in their mind, they're praying to Krishna, please help my relative or family member. But at least externally, what devotees are doing most is chanting. And you wonder why? Why not praying? Why not vandanam? Because it is, they would be very, they would be praying if they weren't chanting. It's just that chanting is considered a little better It's considered even more potent in getting the Lord's attention. That's why they're doing the chanting.
Mhm.
But Rupa Goswami, as you can see here, he's fully supporting the process of prayer. He's into it. He's saying we should do it. But he says, but if we have a choice and we have limited time, or because, the fact is we also, on our condition level, we can't chant all day. So after, let's say we've chanted and we're feeling a little distracted or tired, or then we can start chanting prayers like Queen Kunti's prayers, or just for variety, for different occasions, the devotee can offer different prayers to the Lord.
Mhm. Not that I know how to chant purely in any way whatsoever, but a mindset that I like to have is that I know that by chanting the Maha Mantra, I don't have to worry about all of these other things in order to ask Krishna, because he knows what's in my heart. So, the Maha Mantra at least soothes you with that reassurance. So,
Yes.
thank you so much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. Very nice point. Any other questions or comments? Okay, very nice. So we will stop at this point. Thank you for your very kind attention.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Prabhuji, you give a very beautiful class. So many points, and so many lessons to learn. Prabhuji, I had a very, similar question on prayer and chanting. Is it okay if I can ask to clarify my doubts further?
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So, Prabhuji, what would be the difference between chanting and praying? And is chanting also not, in a form of praying, in a way, if you see?
And see, that was my question as well. And then I'll actually share it with all of you. I actually have a slide on it. I made a slide for a different class on that. In the meantime, while we're talking, I'll pull it out. But this is where it got clarified, actually, that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in this one commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So he wrote a commentary on Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's where he clarifies that, yes, of course, because I was also, well, chanting is prayer, but it's not prayer. Is it prayer? Is it not prayer? And so if it is prayer, then should we chant the other prayers? So he clarifies that, of course, chanting is a type of prayer. But there are different varieties, and there's different types of hearing and chanting. So when a person is praying to the Lord, they are chanting. So when we say the prayers of Queen Kunti, it is chanting Queen Kunti's prayers. And as I mentioned, Srila Prabhupada says that the verses of the Bhagavatam are non-different than the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he clarifies that yes, that's the case. That is true. But even in chanting, the chanting of Krishna's names is more potent than chanting about his qualities or pastimes, which is, the main content of prayers in the Bhagavatam. And therefore, Prabhupada gave us the most basic instructions, or the absolute instruction, was chanting of the 16 rounds every single day. That was the vow that we took at the time of initiation. Why didn't he say, reading of Srimad Bhagavatam 2 hours a day is your vow at initiation? Because even though Prabhupada clearly told us we have to read Bhagavatam 2 hours every day, or we have to read and associate with devotees and all these things every day, in order to keep chanting, but still the chanting of the Mahamantra was what we take the vow in front of the fire, because it's still the most important. Because it's the most potent, he knows, Prabhupada knows that this is Rupa Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also, they're saying that this chanting is the most essential for us at this time. So this is what the Goswamis are saying, this is what the Acharyas are saying, this is what Prabhupada is saying, so that's why we do it. So yes, chanting is a form of prayer. Prabhupada even says that the translation of the mantra is, "O Krishna, O Rama, O Hare, please engage me in your devotional service." So that is a prayer, right? So that is a prayer, but that prayer is that prayer is specifically chanting the names of Krishna, and so that prayer is of a slightly different type of prayer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yes. So I actually found this slide here. I'm just trying to open it. For some reason, it's not opening. Yes. Okay, here. This is very interesting. I actually wanted to give you this here. Yes. Okay. Put it here. So I think you can see this. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he quotes this verse from the Bhagavatam, the translation of which says, chanting the holy name of the Lord from the second canto, O King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is a doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. So this is the constant chanting is a doubtless and fearless way of success for all. So now on this verse, this is the verse that Rupa Goswami quotes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He is quoting from Bhagavatam. On this verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, it is understood from this scripture or verse that bhakti is the method. Among the angas of bhakti, is one of them ascertained as the king? Among the processes or angas of bhakti, is one of them king? This verse answers, among all the angas of bhakti, the chief ones are hearing, chanting, and remembering. Among those three, chanting is the chief. Among those three, chanting is the chief. There are three different types of chanting, namely glorifying the names, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. So three types of chanting is names, pastimes, and qualities. Among these three, the practice of chanting the name of the Lord is supreme. And that's why we see, right, so many devotees become devotees simply as a result of Harinam on the streets, right? Many of us can attest to this. Because why? Because the chanting of the name of the Lord is supreme in terms of different processes. Now, of course, we cannot misunderstand. Why did Prabhupada give us a whole process? Hearing, chanting, remembering, serving. Because unless we do the whole process, we will not be able to chant nicely or not even chant at all if we're not in the association of devotees and not serving and all these things. So we need that service, very important, to do the service of chanting. And because of this reason, chanting is the vow that we make at the time of initiation, because that is the most key thing. So it's the most key thing. And in order to do that most key thing, we have to do other things also. But still, that remains the most key thing. We have to remember that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other final question? Okay, thank you. So next time we will continue with chapter 12. And yes, I will try to, as soon as possible, give you some sort of study guide for the exam and also nail down a date for the exam. It seems like the reason I wasn't able to do this until now, because every time I think that, I'll do like 3 chapters or I'll do 4 chapters. But now it's been 2 or 3 times, and every single time it seems like each week we can cover 2 chapters. So I prepared 3, but we could only get through 2. So given that I'm pretty confident we'll do 2 chapters a week, now I think I can make a more clear idea of the date for our exam. So the reason I'm saying the reason I didn't do it until now is because every time I was in hopes of covering more, and I didn't know how much I could cover each time. So we covered 10 and 11 this time. So we have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Perfect. So we have 4 weeks left. Yeah, 4 weeks. And then after that, we'll have the exam. So I'll send that text to you. After 4 weeks, we'll finish the Nectar devotion. I'm not getting homeworks from all of you. And I know it's summertime, So I know it's difficult. It's difficult for me also. Winter was so much easier. Summer, there's always so many distractions, places to go, things to do, especially that, now people are out after COVID, and who knows, it might come back. So people are trying to get things done during the summer. So I fully understand, but there's just no way to pass the course without completing the homeworks. So please keep sending me the homework. The homework is for your benefit. I will just see if you've done it or not. I don't go through it, but you have to complete it. So just go through all the homework and send it to me, please. And make sure to attend all the classes and keep attending all the classes. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.